What's up, Steelers fans? Welcome back to another episode of Around the Burgh. We're here to preview the Steelers' Week 13 matchup with the Baltimore Ravens. I'm your host, Mitchell Wolf, here with my co-host Shayne Kubis. Shayne, what is your ledge status with this team? Because I think last time we were fully off it, and I'm wondering where we are now.
Well, nothing has really helped anything. So,
No,
I mean, that ledge is still
we're still
clearly,
plummeting to earth.
yeah, like I still can look up and see it. So it's
Yeah.
definitely, I
Okay.
mean, we'll talk about, obviously about the actual like matchups coming up and everything else, but just nothing going right now for
Right.
this team. And
Yeah, everything is bleak. It's not great. But so we'll get into the news from this week first. And the big thing is Chase Claypool's comments. And all the Steelers are talking to the media, and the media's obviously asking like, hey, like, what do you guys think you are going to do different? How can you kind of get out of this funk? And he says, I don't know, like maybe we could try like playing music at practice. We do it during the warm-ups, like maybe we could try that. And I don't disagree with him. I think it's a good point. You're in a losing streak, you're in a funk, maybe you got to switch things up. But this is the inverse of don't shoot the messenger. Like anybody else could have said this and it would have been fine. But coming from Chase, who's, has this kind of controversial personality among the Steelers fans, it's just not going to go over well, regardless of what he says.
And like, yeah, that's the problem with it is like you said, anyone else says this, it's kind of a throwaway line, probably. Like it's like whatever, nobody cares. But between like the way he acted during the game at the end with like messing with people, like it's just everything is going against him right now from a personality standpoint and from a public perception standpoint. So he probably should have just been like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, that's up to coaches or whatever, something like that, like some basic line, opposed to actually just being honest, which I appreciate that from him, but it's not going his way, right? Like he's not getting any bonus.
Yeah,
for doing
and I mean,
that.
I think, and again, like I don't have as much of a problem with some of Claypool's, off-field stuff as some people. I do think though that the Steelers are kind of lacking a person who's an offensive skill position player that is a veteran, but not Ben Roethlisberger levels of veteran. Someone who's in their late 20s, has been around the league for a while, because it's really just all these young guys in their first contracts, and then Ben. And it was like Eric Ebron and Juju kind of, but Juju is obviously super young, and he's kind of, and Ebron is a little bit kind of a fun guy too. So there isn't really that Vance McDonald guy who's kind of the more even keel stoic veteran to kind of talk these guys into how to say the right thing. And I think that is a bit of an issue right now. The responses to Claypool's comments, especially from the Steelers players and members, I thought were pretty funny. So Tomlin had his comment where he said, Chase plays wide receiver, so he can do that. I'm the head coach. My job is to, set the practice schedule. And I think that division of labor is good. And I thought that was a very, very diplomatic, funny way of putting it.
It's a Tomlin thing to say, 100%.
Yeah, but I thought that was a perfect way of handling it. And then Cam Hayward said I think he said he heard it on the radio, and he said, I hope he was joking, because if he wasn't, I wanted to rip my speaker out for him saying that. Which is just like, I mean, again, like I think maybe they could try it, because I think, like I said, they need to get out of this funk. It's not going well. But
just play Renegade constantly.
Yeah, I mean,
practice. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, we'll see. I don't know.
That's what they should do, just to mess with Chase. Though they should just play Renegade the whole time and see what he says. It'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, man. But But the other comments were, there was a lot of talk about increasing the intensity of practices. There's this kind of harkens back to that Schobert comment from a few weeks ago about, quote, taking practice seriously. And again, I think that was more about having short weeks and, having guys banged up that you need to take some days off. And I think I did see that from multiple sources that they did have at least one extra padded practice this week.
Yeah.
And then Minka and Tomlin both talked about, getting more intensive practice this week, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, it's just like you can tell that like it's being exacerbated by the fact that we don't have as much depth on the defensive line, and linebackers have not been playing great, especially tackling and everything. Like it's making it worse than it already would be. But even the guys who are in there aren't playing as well as they should still be playing, especially when it comes to the run defense.
Yeah, and I think that, like we talked about, kind of, I guess we talked about this after the last game, is that it's not that there is an effort. Like Minka, Cam, I mean, I think TJ talked about it, Thomas talked about it. It's like there is effort there. Like guys are trying, and like Minka said, like as soon as he got back from the game, like he went to his house and just watched the film repeatedly. Like they're trying to figure out what's going on. It's just not clicking yet. I don't think they can play a worse game than they did Sunday.
Yeah, that was probably
just by
hopefully
default.
Like a bottom of
Yeah,
the road type of thing. Yeah, bottom
exactly.
of the barrel
Yeah.
type of performance. So
Yeah, there's nowhere to go but up. So,
right.
And the problem with that though is that TJ Watt's on the COVID list now.
Yeah,
I think because he was on it pretty early, there's a chance he could play if he continues to test
maybe.
negative. And even if he does, I mean, he like we've said, he is the kind of guy that can play and contribute without having a full week of practice.
For sure. Yeah.
But that sucks. And then Joe Haig is on the list. Robert Spillane is on the list, but Spillane was already hurt, so that's not a big of a deal. And then the offensive line depth, it is what it is. So that's just bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the offensive line is what it is at this point. I think. Like, I don't see much changing in the short term. So
not
much
and then,
change there.
Like on the injury report, Zach Banner hasn't practiced due to a separate illness. Hayden hasn't practiced all week yet. So, and then Arthur Mollett did not practice today on Thursday, and then a few other guys were limited. Most were back to full though. So, of the guys that are available, it seems that most people are getting healthy. Aside from Hayden and Banners, but yeah, I mean, if they can get Hayden back, that should be really helpful.
Yeah, especially the way the corners have played this year outside of him. Yeah, it's been rough go of it.
Yeah. The good news is quote good. I think the Ravens are also pretty banged up. They've got a lot of injuries in the corner room. Chris Westry, Tavon Young. Let me see. I think Marlon Humphrey didn't practice today for an illness. It seems like they're kind of getting a little bit of a flu going around. I've seen that's happened with a lot of college teams recently.
Yeah, Lamar. I know Lamar missed the last one game.
I saw a tweet today, and it was a video of the Ravens practicing, and it showed their practice field, and it was such a weird look because their practice field was like a perfect tan or beige. And somebody said the reason why Lamar has missed all the time for getting ill is because they're playing on sawdust.
Yeah, he's like, what the hell are we doing here? What's going on?
Yeah.
No, it's the Ravens, obviously they have their own separate just insane injury luck this year, and like everything else. Like
they seem to be though that it's kind of like they just get like one or two guys at like each position group like at a time, like one guy and then as soon as one guy gets healthy, the other guy gets hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas Steelers just like everybody on the D line's hurt.
Yeah, everybody is just gone for a week.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
What do we do? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. So
it's interesting. Yeah.
Right. So we'll now get into the more matchup specific stuff. So we'll go by by who has the ball. So Ravens offense has been weird. They haven't scored a lot recently. They've been struggling, have a lot of turnovers with Lamar. They have the 10th highest turnover percentage in the league at 13%, with the 5th highest interception percentage and the 4th highest sack percentage. And I think that sack percentage is a little skewed because of Lamar's running, but still. The biggest issue, though, is that they're second in rushing yards per game, and the Steelers are 28th in rushing yards allowed.
That's the matchup here where they are obviously not the same rushing team that they have been in the past because of all the injuries to the running back group and needing to have freaking Le'Veon Bell on their team for a short period. I mean, like when you have to do that in 2021, that's not good. But but I mean, Lamar's always a threat as a runner, obviously too, and especially with the depleted defensive line, that scares me a lot. I mean, Justin Herbert ran for how many yards on us without even being a true runner by any means. That's definitely concerning, and really just because of the fact that they still want to emphasize running the football, and I think they should while they're figuring everything out offensively with the passing game. Because especially before the last game against the Browns, like a lot of the interceptions and stuff like that, when I was watching them, it did seem less like truly bad plays and more so just bad execution of things and like receivers like mixing stuff up. This past game, Lamar definitely looked a lot more, less under control in the pocket.
Yeah, it was
bad decisions.
Yeah, it was very weird. Just throwing balls all over the place where they didn't need to go. It was very, very strange from him. And he was also bad against the Dolphins a few weeks ago.
Yeah, so I just don't expect them to continue though. We can't rely on that being the case against him. We have to be prepared for them to be able to do more of that if the running game isn't working, especially if our corner group is still going to be playing the way it has.
Yeah, definitely. The interesting thing is the Ravens are 25th in the league in third down percentage, but obviously they like to go for it on fourth down, and they have the same amount of fourth down attempts as the Steelers. They both have 13, but the Ravens have converted 9 instead of 4 as the Steelers have, which is their conversion rate is tied for the best in the league.
Yeah, which that doesn't surprise me considering we've seen, especially early in the season, some of the play calling decisions on the fourth down plays weren't exactly fantastic for the Steelers.
Yeah.
And the Ravens always have the wild card of, man, Lamar can literally just run away from everybody. Hopefully, it's like, so can't exactly expect that from Ben. So
Right. And the thing with Lamar is like when the Steelers have played him the last few years, they've traditionally done a pretty good job of handling him.
they have.
And I think the issue though with that is that they've been very healthy in those games.
Yes.
You know, they've had their full it's mainly they've had the full complement of defensive linemen. You know, they've had Alualu to it. You know, they had Hargrave in the past. They had guys that were, you know, able to lock down the run, especially up the middle. And right now, the Steelers just don't have that. So, and like that's really the whole Ravens bread and butter. And you know, basically the Steelers, if they can kind of stop that, then they force the Ravens to kind of go to their offhand stuff. You know, their off speed pitches, if you will, and that kind of is how they were able to keep the Ravens in check. But if the Ravens can kind of just stick with what they do best, you know, just running the ball up the middle, downhill, then I don't think they're going to have to really go outside of their comfort zone, and they'll be able to have a pretty good success against the Steelers defense.
Yeah, the thing I'm worried about too is if we have to sell out to stop that inside run, Lamar's just going to keep it on those outside pulls where he just takes off the edge, and like especially if TJ's not healthy or he's not playing because of the fact that he's on the COVID list. I mean, Highsmith obviously he had an interception obviously last year against them, so that was good. But like I don't know if I can rely on him to be the guy that sets the edge against him. It's just asking a lot. None of the other edge group guys are going to be able to stay with him, even if they try to set the edge good. So definitely worried about that.
It was funny. I was talking with the Ravens guys last night, and they were being pretty rosy about the Steelers' defensive line. I was like, "Do you guys know who's starting at edge with TJ Watt? It's Derek Tuska and Taco Charlton."
Yeah, it's like, do you guys understand what we're dealing with right now?
Yeah, I was like, I appreciate the optimism from you guys, but this is not good right now.
It's just not. Yeah, it's just not what we want at all. So.
But so like what I would anticipate is that the Steelers are really just I think they are gonna sell out to stop the run. And I think what that entails is they're just gonna be placing like 8 or 9 guys in the box and just be like, listen, if he's gonna throw it deep, we'll live with it. Like we're not gonna let them run all over us, whatever happens, So maybe that kind of means Terrell Edmonds is kind of your designated Lamar spy, because he's probably one of the more athletic players in the defense who can keep up with Lamar. So maybe he's the guy that kind of just follows him.
That would make a lot of sense for sure. Yeah, if they use them in that way, because they're gonna want to have them prove they can beat them over the top before they worry about it. And I am concerned though that they can do that, because especially if Hollywood Brown's playing well, or if he's actually successful, like we don't have any corners that can stay with him one-on-one. Sutton obviously is probably going to draw that matchup, but.
Just by default.
But Pierre, like if Pierre's on him, forget about it. Like it's just not gonna happen. That's what concerns me a little bit. Like who's gonna cover Mark Andrews? Is Minka gonna have to handle that? Like that's another problem. It's just everything about it's just not great with the defense.
Yeah, that was the one player that I highlighted for the Ravens that I was like, Steelers are not gonna have answers for, is that's Marquise Brown. Like if I were the Ravens, I would just line him up outside every play and just send him on a go route. Like
eventually it's gonna work.
At some point, they're gonna like not cover it right, and he'll be wide open. So, but I do agree with you. I think they'll keep Cam Sutton with him. I would think they would try to keep Minka over the top of him, but then that might leaves more room for guys like Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman to a little lesser extent. I think that's Rashad Bateman will get James Pierre, which he's a rookie, so maybe. It's a little bit of advantage, but
that right there, I actually kind of already like one of my predictions a little bit, not to get too early into it, is that Bateman has his best career game.
Yep.
I could honestly expect that being the case, because he's either going to do it because he's getting Pierre most of the game, or because there's so much attention being put on Brown to make sure he doesn't go over the top, and Andrews, that he just has a lot of room to find space to get it.
Yeah, so. I definitely agree with that. That's a good point. And I think in general, like this Ravens are just superior in the trenches. I would say on both sides of the ball. So we'll flip over to the other side, and the Ravens defense is kind of weird because they're playing generally well, but they've had a lot of issues giving up explosive plays. So they have the worst passing defense in the NFL by yards per game at 275.7. But they have the second best rushing defense with 84.2 yards per game. So I'll say this. in terms of how the Steelers can play, this might be actually a decent matchup for them because this might be a game where it's just, all right, Ben, it's your call. Run your offense, do your thing. I'm not, and Matt Canada just kind of hands over the headset, be like, do what you want.
And the sad part is like that probably is the most effective strategy against this defense because realistically, we're not going to run the football, right?
No.
Like it's just we're not only because we're just not good at it right now because of the offensive line and the game situations we've been in, but they're going to make sure that we don't. Like they do not want to let us off the hook and let us get the game going with the rushing game. They're going to make Ben prove he can throw it 40 times to win a football game, and it's just like. I don't know. Even though they've been bad against the pass, like I could see him getting a little bit too confident and throwing something he shouldn't be throwing, and it's just that's what I'm worried about.
I'm sure that'll happen. I really do think though that there's gonna be like, listen, like last week was rock bottom. We were trying to be cute running the ball. Like we're just gonna let Ben do his thing this week. He's just gonna run the whole offense. It's gonna be hurry up the whole time. It's up to him. The problem is though that the Ravens had the best defense in the NFL on third downs, allowing only 30.5% and in the red zone at 42.9%. So
they're kind of, to me, they kind of are a less effective version of what the Patriots typically do, where they're not always great with yards allowed or in between the 20s, but when it counts, they stiffen up and they make it happen. That's what they've really done a good job of this year.
Yeah, I can't remember what their points per game was rated. I think they allowing like 21 points per game. They're right in the middle of the pack in points. But it's funny because from what I've heard about the Ravens defense, I was like, oh, like they allow explosive plays, but they probably like get a lot of sacks and turnovers. And they have the third highest blitz rate in the league, the fourth highest pressure rate. So they get pressure, but they only have the 17th highest sack rate. And they have only forced turnovers on 7.9% of drives, which is 29th in the NFL. So I think they're just getting teams off the field on third down.
That's really what it seems like. Because when I've watched their games too, like you said, the explosive plays, if they were just to be able to cut down on those a little bit, they'd probably be like a solidly 100% in the top 15-ish or more defenses on a lot of metrics. They just can't stop giving up some of these big plays. Like even against the Dolphins near the end of the game, they had that big passing play they gave up to, I think it was Albert Wilson, I think is who it was.
That's it.
Where that's pretty much sealed the game for the Dolphins whenever they had a chance to get back in it. It's just they can't seem to keep those plays from happening. If they could, probably be looking at a different defense from a just stats perspective.
Yeah, and I think part of that is the injuries, like we mentioned, the injuries to their back end, and for that reason, I think that's where some of the matchup Steelers can exploit. I think one of them is Brandon Stevens, who's their rookie starting free safety, and I think Pat Freiermuth versus him will be very interesting. I think they'll obviously try to get Chuck Clark and Patrick Queen on Freiermuth, but if they can find ways to attack Stevens with Freiermuth, I think that's a very advantageous matchup.
Yeah, he needs to be a big part of it just because that's where they are weaker at this point, is that middle of the field type of situation, or getting somebody down into that range of the defensive post trying to attack like Marlon Humphrey. You don't want to do that if you don't have to. I'm assuming Humphrey's going to be shadowing Johnson, I have to imagine.
Well, that I don't know.
Yeah.
Because so I mean he was out with an illness, so I'm imagining he'll be back. But I don't know, because like they do like him in the slot a lot, and I think obviously the Steelers want to get Claypool in the slot, and Humphrey is very physical, and we've seen that Claypool doesn't really do well with physical corners. So
they might try to.
And Humphrey's a bit of a pest too. So so I would put Humphrey on Claypool, and basically I think you can erase him from the game plan. Which I think the other side of the coin is that then you have to put Anthony Averett on Deontay Johnson, which you might not want, because that's a very, because I was talking with the Ravens guys last night about this as well, and they seem to be comfortable with that. And I was like, I wouldn't be so sure about Deontay versus Anthony Averett, because Deontay's playing probably the best ball of his career these past few weeks.
And that's the problem with it, is like, I think that you're right that like if you want to erase Claypool, Humphrey's the right matchup for him. But if I'm the Steelers, if I'm the Ravens defensive coaches and I'm looking at this game, I would much rather give Claypool a chance to have a good
that's
game
true,
than let Deontay dominate against other guys.
That's a good point,
because Humphrey at least has the athleticism to handle Johnson and try to stay with him on some of his routes, and he's physical too, like you said, to keep him from getting a lot of these freer releases and everything. Whereas with Claypool, as much as I like his talent and he's had some splash plays, he's not consistent enough where it's like, okay, if we don't cover him with Humphrey, he's going to kill us. I don't think they're worried as much about that.
Yeah, and I think if Claypool does draw Averett, I think Ben will like that matchup because Averett's 5'11", Chase is 6'4". On 3rd and 4, Ben's gonna throw that go route. We just know it.
Yeah, and it's just whether Chase can like stay on his feet or just beat a guy who actually is shorter than him. It's just he's such a weird player right now.
Yeah,
like, he's a good player and he makes big plays occasionally, but it's not in the way that someone of his body type or skill set would normally win, and that's what's frustrating a little bit right now.
He's got to kind of get his head on straight. I think there's really not a lot to talk about with the running game because I just don't think it's going to go well.
Yeah. I just feel bad for Najee.
Yeah, really bad for him. I mean, on this offensive line, they're gonna have their hands full with this because they're gonna face Calais Campbell, who's playing probably just as well as Cam Hayward is right now. They've still got Brandon Williams, who's a good nose tackle. Odafe Owe is in the contention for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
He's been great, yeah.
And I mean, if he's on, if he's on Chooks, Chooks has the movement skills to stick with him. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Could give Dan Moore some problems if he's lining up over there. So yeah, just not again, the Steelers do not have the advantage on either side of the ball in the trenches in this game. So that's just, it is what it is. All right, so we'll get into our predictions now. Let's see. We're going pretty quick today.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, not feeling still not feeling 100%. So
yeah, hopefully feel a little bit better this weekend. Hopefully.
Yeah. All right. So Ravens are -4.5. The over/under is 44. So we're looking at a pretty low scoring, decently close game. And this is something I was talking about the Ravens guys as well, is like pretty much no matter where these teams are, in terms of their record, in terms of the narrative of their season, these games are just always close, no matter what, no matter how bad or how good either team is, aside from, the end of the 2019 season when it was a monsoon and the Steelers were just, dead in the water, other than that, it's pretty much always close.
Yeah. It's like the under is really interesting because this offense for the Ravens has struggled. The Steelers offense obviously just isn't good to begin with. I'm tempted to want to go under, definitely with the prediction, but something about this game makes me feel like they're going to end up in some sort of a shootout, maybe not anything too crazy, but more than this the over-under would suggest.
Maybe goes to overtime at 2020. And then they score a touchdown in overtime to get it. Yeah, I see that. Yeah,
like if the under just doesn't feel right to me, like in this game for some reason, like whether it's turnovers leading to quick points or something happening, like I feel like the point totals are going to be a little bit higher than maybe they're suggesting. When I was thinking about it earlier, I was thinking something along the lines of like 28 something to whatever it was. I think my final end of prediction was 28-21 Ravens.
Okay, all right. Pretty standard then.
Yeah.
28. Yeah, I mean, I just, it's funny, like a few weeks ago we talked about like the Chargers game and it was like everything points Chargers this game because of all the injuries, and so that's why I picked the Steelers, and they almost did it. But eventually just didn't have the horses, and I think you could make that same argument here, like everything points Ravens, so it's time to go Steelers, but I'm going to stick with the under here because, I mean, the last 3 games, the Ravens have scored 10, 16, and 16 points.
Yeah.
Steelers, aside from kind of their explosion against the Chargers, which you could argue like one of those touchdowns was because of a blocked punt. Another one, you got an interception with a very short field. And other than that, you had 16 points in overtime against the Lions and 10 points against the Bengals. So neither of these, and again, we talked about the Ravens defense. Their big problem is to give explosive plays. The Steelers don't make explosive plays. So they should be fine.
Like something has to give in this game, right?
Exactly.
Either the Ravens still manage to give up explosive plays, maybe Claypool takes a slant or Deontay or something like that. But it's hard right now to expect it.
The other thing that we should have mentioned earlier is that this is the game of the kicker goats.
Yes, so, absolutely.
I think I think I'm going to go with Ravens 20, Steelers 16. I think on the Ravens show I said 21, 18, and I was like, oh wow, you could have like 13 field goals in a game with that score. And I was like, that would be fun. Just no touchdowns in this game, just infinite field goals. Basically, just Justin Tucker and Chris Boswell playing horse.
Right. It's like who can miss first, basically.
Which, like, honestly, with how these offenses are looking, that would be more fun.
Honestly, yeah, I would rather them just like trot out the kickers no matter what.
It's just
Basically,
like
and
the end.
say
It's like
kick
a
the field
sock. It's
goal.
like a shock with penalty with shootout penalty
Yeah,
kicks or
yeah,
whatever.
penalty kicks. Yeah, it's
Type of
just
fun. But yeah, I think that there is a good chance the Steelers can win this game just because it is the Ravens. Their backs are against the wall as much as they can be. This is the do or die time. This is the final stand. So, if they're going to win a game, this will be it. And if they don't, then I won't be too shocked either. But that kind of just says this season's cooked.
yeah. I do have a fun question though. If you had to put an over under on the amount of pass attempts that Ben has in this game, how high would it have to be for you to take the under?
Okay.
Because I have an idea in my head, like what it would have to be for me to take the under on it.
Oh, wait. Okay. So okay. I thought you were saying the in relation to the points under, but okay. I would probably say, well, because the thing is, I think he's going to throw the ball a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'd say like 39.5.
I decided in my head that it would have to be 40 plus for me to take the under, because I feel like you said, one, I just think that that's going to end up being the game plan in general.
Yeah.
Like, it just makes sense because the way that this Ravens defense has been, I'd rather take my chances with hoping something pops off in the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
So especially if we get down at any point pretty significantly and we have to try to come back, then you're going to be easily hitting that 40 plus. So I'd probably have to get like 41, 42, and then I'll take the under maybe.
I think the other interesting thing is that, neither of these defenses are great at getting turnovers, but these two quarterbacks could turn the ball over a lot.
Yeah, that's why I'm like the under for 44 was like, it makes a lot of sense, but like I could see turnovers playing a big factor into the point totals. Like maybe not the defense is actually just straight up giving up those points, but just bad plays and just bad field positions. Like
it could be like that sequence in the Browns Ravens game this past week where it was just like interception, fumble, interception. It was just like
was that not the grossest game?
Oh my god, that was foul.
So hilarious.
But it was the sickos meme. But yeah, that'll do it for us this week. We'll be back on Sunday at pretty much 8:30. So we'll be right after the game's over. We'll give our live reaction to whatever happens. But
yeah, whatever that football game looks like.
Exactly.
Probably going to be pretty ugly. So
yeah. All right. So in the meantime, Shane, let people know they can find you and your work.
Yeah, find me at Shane Kubis on Twitter, like always, and at the Steelers ATB Twitter too. Definitely will be live tweeting the game, hopefully this week, like it did last. Hopefully I don't quit halfway through because I'm too sad. But if I'll probably try to stick around either way, especially so you guys know when we're doing stuff that night. So
absolutely, you can find me at Mitchell T Wolf, WOLFE on Twitter. Just make sure you're following us, following Around the Block on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, all the social networks. Thank you for tuning in. We hope to have you back next time.